In 2087, the Galactic Council made a terrible choice. They looked at Earth and decided it was too dangerous to let humans keep growing and spreading. The Council wasn't just one alien group, but many. Tall blue beings from water worlds, small, hovering creatures with too many eyes, and others humans couldn't even properly see. They had watched Earth for centuries, and what they saw scared them. Commander Jiwoo Kim stood at the viewport of Survival Station 1, her fingers pressed against the cold glass as she watched the unthinkable happen below. The Council ships were small, almost beautiful, as they released clouds of nanites into Earth's atmosphere. These tiny machines were changing everything, breaking down the delicate balance that made Earth livable. "They're not bombing us," she whispered to her second-in-command, Hyun. "That would be kinder. They're unmaking us." The oceans were turning grey. The green forests were browning at the edges. Even from orbit, they could see the change spreading like ink in water. Billions who couldn't make it to the escape ships were down there. Jiwoo's parents, her little brother, the old man who sold sweet rice cakes near her apartment. "Get me recording equipment," she said suddenly, turning from the window. Her face was wet with tears, but her voice didn't shake. That would come later, in private. Now she needed to be strong. The escape had been rushed. When the Council's ships first appeared near Jupiter 3 months ago, most humans thought they came in peace. By the time their true purpose was clear, Earth had only managed to build 12 massive ships, not proper spaceships, but giant metal shells with basic life support. They had been meant for colonizing Mars someday, not running for their lives, across unknown space. Now those ships carried just over 7 million humans, a tiny fraction of Earth's population. Each person had been chosen for skills or genetic diversity. Each carried the weight of those left behind. In the recording room, Jiwoo sat straight-backed before the camera. Behind her, Earth continued to die. "Record this," she commanded. I am Commander Jiwoo Kim of Earth. Today, the date is August 17, 2087. This recording will serve as humanity's memory and promise. She took a deep breath. The beings who call themselves the Galactic Council have attacked our world without warning or mercy. They are destroying Earth's ability to support life. They believe they are removing a threat, eliminating a species that might one day challenge them. The lights flickered as the station's power adjusted. They would need to conserve energy for the long journey ahead. The Council believes they've eliminated us. They will learn that humans don't die. We adapt, we survive, and we remember. She leaned closer to the camera. To any human watching this recording in the future, we carry with us the seeds of Earth, plant and animal DNA, human embryos in storage, and our knowledge. We carry our stories, our music, our art. We carry everything that makes us human. The station shuddered slightly. On the screens behind her, the first escape ship was preparing to leave orbit. To the Council, if you ever find this recording, you have made an enemy today that will not forget. We may be scattered, we may be few, but humans have always thrived against impossible odds. This is not our end, this is our beginning. After the recording, Jiwoo walked the crowded hallways of the station. People huddled together, many still in shock. Some cried quietly, others worked with desperate energy, preparing for the journey. A small girl clutched a worn stuffed rabbit. An old man held a container of earth soil. In the station's makeshift lab, scientists were working to preserve what they could. Seeds from thousands of plant species, frozen embryos of animals, bacteria, and fungi that might someday help rebuild ecosystems. "Where will we go?" asked Dr. Sunho, not looking up from his microscope. "The Council controls most known habitable systems." "Away," Jiwoo said simply. "Into the dark between stars if we must. There are places they don't bother with. Dead systems. Radiation zones, the galactic rim, places they think nothing could survive." She looked at the star chart they'd been studying. So much unknown space. They think we're primitive because we've barely left our solar system. They think we're just clever animals. That's why they won't chase us. They believe space itself will kill us. Later that night, as the station made final preparations to follow the escape ships, Jiwoo stood at the viewport one last time. Earth still looked blue from this distance, though the white clouds now had a sickly yellow tinge. Soon it would be uninhabitable, not destroyed, but ruined. A dead world orbiting a yellow star. 500 years, she whispered to the dying planet. Give us 500 years and we'll be back. Give us 1,000 and we'll be ready. And if it takes 500,000 years, we'll still remember. We'll still return. She pressed her hand against the glass one last time. This isn't goodbye, it's a promise. As Survival Station 1 fired its engines and joined the fleet of refugee ships, the Council vessels were already leaving Earth's orbit, their mission complete. They sent no pursuit ships. They placed no monitoring satellites. In their arrogance, they simply moved on to their next task, certain that humanity, if any survived at all, would become nothing more than nomads drifting through space. It would be the greatest mistake any civilization in the galaxy had ever made. 200,000 years was a long time to remember a promise. Most species would have forgotten. Most would have moved on, found new homes and let the pain of the past fade into myth and legend. But humans were different. The vast chamber where Taiho Park stood didn't exist, not in normal space anyway. The walls shimmered with a faint blue light, energy containment fields holding back the nothingness that existed beyond dimensional reality. Through the massive observation window, he could see the test station floating in what looked like a pocket of twilight. "Status report?" he asked, his voice carrying the slight musical quality that had evolved in human speech over the millennia. "All systems nominal," replied Yuna, his second-in-command. "The station has fully shifted into dimensional pocket space. We're maintaining stable connection through the quantum tether." Taiho nodded, allowing himself a small smile. His ancestors would have shouted with joy or danced around the room. Modern humans had better control of their emotional expressions, but the feeling inside him was just as strong. 5 centuries of work, he murmured as he watched the test station shimmer and disappear from normal space. "With this we can build infrastructure the Council will never find." The room erupted into quiet celebration. Scientists and engineers exchanged meaningful glances and respectful touches on the shoulder. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was another step in humanity's great plan. Humans had come so far from those frightened refugees who fled Earth. The 12 ships had found their way to a distant, unclaimed star system with a barely habitable planet they named Haven. The early years had been brutal. Thousands died from radiation exposure, strange illnesses, and the sheer difficulty of building a colony with limited resources. But they survived. They adapted. Their bodies changed to handle the higher radiation. Their lungs evolved to process the thinner atmosphere. They built shelters underground at first, then cities, then fleets of new ships. And always they remembered Earth. Every child born on Haven and the colonies that followed was implanted with the memory, a direct neural recording of Earth's destruction, taken from Commander Jiwoo Kim's own experiences. Every human carried the sight of their homeworld dying, ensuring the promise would never be forgotten. Taiho himself was a direct descendant of Jiwoo Kim, though after so many generations, such connections were common among humans. What made him special was his mind, brilliant even by the standards of evolved humanity, and his dedication to the return. "Show me the power readings," he said, moving to a console nearby. Yuna brought up a holographic display showing energy curves and stability. "Metrics. We're using 40% less power than predicted. The dimensional pocket is self-sustaining once established." This was revolutionary. Previous attempts at dimensional technology had required enormous energy inputs. This new approach meant they could create spaces, entire hidden worlds, that the Council's sensors would never detect. Later that day, Taiho walked through Central Haven City, a sprawling metropolis built into and around an ancient mountain range. The buildings rose like crystal formations designed to withstand the planet's frequent storms. Above, force fields shimmered, protecting the city from the radiation of Haven's twin suns. Citizens nodded respectfully as he passed. Everyone knew of the Park Research Division and their work. Everyone understood its importance. He stopped at a small memorial garden, a place designed to look like old Earth, with grass and trees genetically recreated from stored samples. In the center stood a simple stone sculpture of a woman looking up at the stars. Commander Kim's memorial. "We're getting closer," he said quietly to the statue. Each breakthrough brings us one step nearer to fulfilling your promise. For 200 millennia, humanity had hidden, grown stronger, and prepared. While the Galactic Council believed them extinct or reduced to primitive nomads, humans had been building an invisible empire. They had colonies now in 14 galaxies, all carefully chosen to avoid Council territories. They had developed technology that worked on principles the Council species couldn't comprehend. And they had been patient, so patient, gathering intelligence through automated probes and occasional daring reconnaissance missions. 3 decades ago, a human scout ship had captured a damaged Council vessel. The technology they recovered had accelerated their research immensely. Taiho's team had spent years reverse engineering it, learning how Council systems worked, finding weaknesses, and improving upon their designs. Now they were ready for the next phase. Back in his laboratory complex, Taiho met with the Strategic Council, 12 leaders representing humanity's major colony clusters. "The dimensional shift technology works," he reported. "We can now build infrastructure completely hidden from Council detection. Shipyards, weapons platforms, even entire worlds can exist in pocket dimensions, ready to emerge when needed." An older woman named Hana, who represented the Orion colonies, nodded thoughtfully. "And the timeline for implementation? 10 years to build the first major dimensional shipyard, another 50 to construct the Retribution fleet. After that," Taiho paused, looking at the star map hovering above the table. It showed Council territories in red, spanning nearly a third of the known universe. "After that, we begin systematic intelligence gathering within Council space. No more remote observation. We'll need operatives on their worlds." The room fell silent as they considered the enormity of what they were planning. For 200,000 years, humanity had avoided direct contact with the Council. The risk of discovery had been too great. "We've waited this long," said Junho, the youngest member of the Strategic Council. "We can wait another century to do this right." Taiho nodded. "The Council believes they eliminated us. They will learn they simply forced us to evolve faster than we would have on Earth. Their attack was meant to end us. Instead, it forged us into something stronger." As the meeting concluded, Taiho returned to the observation deck. The test station had reappeared, data streaming back to the research team. Beyond the window, he could see Haven's moons rising and the distant shipyards where vessels were being constructed. Ships unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. Soon, very soon, in the long history of humanity's exile, they would emerge from hiding. The Council wouldn't recognize what they had become. They wouldn't understand the patience, the determination, the sheer will that had driven humans to survive and thrive against impossible odds. But they would learn. The air on Tarsis Prime was sweet, almost sugary. Minji Lee had become used to it after 3 weeks in her altered form. The body she wore now, a borrowed shape with blue-gray skin and 6 fingers on each hand, felt almost natural. The vocal implant that changed her speech patterns to that of the Nistari was practically undetectable. Only another human would have recognized the subtle tell in her walk, the slight forward lean that 400,000 years of human evolution hadn't quite eliminated. Not that there were any other humans on Tarsis Prime, at least none that she knew of. Minji made her way through the central archives, her steps measured and unhurried. As a visiting scholar from the Outer Rim, she had legitimate access to most of the historical records. What she didn't have permission for, the small device hidden beneath her skin would help with. 400,000 years was a long time to nurture a grudge. A long time to remember a dying world, to pass down the memory of blue oceans turning grey and green forests withering to dust. Humans had changed in those years, changed so completely that the Council species probably wouldn't recognize them, even if they encountered them face to face. Human bodies were no longer fixed things. They could shift and alter, adapt to any environment. Human minds were no longer trapped in single skulls. Consciousness could be distributed across networks, backed up, shared. Death, for most practical purposes, had been overcome centuries ago. Yet through all these transformations, one thing remained constant: the memory of Earth. Every human, no matter how altered, carried the genetic memory implant of Commander Jiwoo Kim watching her planet die. It was the one thing that united them across centuries and transformations. Information access, point 17, is available, announced the pleasant Archive 6. Minji nodded to the shimmering holographic attendant and made her way to the designated station. She placed her six-fingered hand on the access panel and thought the carefully constructed passcode. The neural interface clicked into place, opening a restricted portion of the archives. Supposedly, this section contained information about extinct species and failed civilizations, perfect academic material for her cover identity as a xenoarchaeologist. What it actually contained was the truth about Earth. Minji worked carefully, methodically. The memory nodes she accessed were old, some dating back to the early days of the Council. Layer by layer, she peeled back the carefully constructed historical narrative about Sol System. As she did, her heart, technically hearts, since her current form had 3, beat faster. "Interesting," she murmured, maintaining her cover even though no one was nearby. Very interesting indeed. The files were there, not erased, not destroyed, simply buried under security protocols and reclassifications. The Council, for all its faults, seemed incapable of actually destroying information. They merely hid what they didn't want found, and after 6 weeks of patient digging, Minji had found it. She downloaded the files into her implanted memory core, the process feeling like a cool liquid running down her spine. These weren't just records. They were the actual decision matrices, the meeting transcripts, the impact assessments from when the Council decided to destroy Earth. Back in her private quarters that evening, she reviewed what she'd found. The history was damning. The Council, or rather, the species that had controlled the Council 500,000 years ago, had deliberately targeted Earth not because of any actual threat, but because of projections. Probability analytics indicate human technological development will surpass Council standards within 947 standard years, read one ancient report. Their adaptability index exceeds all known sentient species by a factor of 3.2. Recommendation: preemptive containment. Containment, such a sterile word for genocide. Minji sat back, her borrowed body feeling suddenly heavy. The modern Council species had no idea. The files showed clearly that as the millennia passed, knowledge of the human race had faded from common record. What had begun as a deliberate suppression of information had over time become simply forgotten history. The official modern record claimed that Sol System had experienced a natural stellar event, a massive coronal ejection that had rendered the third planet uninhabitable. Bad luck for whatever primitive species might have been evolving there. Nothing more. The truth was buried in classified archives that almost no one had access to or interest in. The current Council representatives, most from species that hadn't even been part of the Council when Earth was destroyed, genuinely didn't know what their predecessors had done. But Minji knew. And soon all of humanity would know. She prepared her report, encoding it in a signal that would be picked up by the quantum relay hidden in Tarsis Prime's second moon. From there, it would travel instantly to human command centers throughout the galaxies. "The official record claims our solar system suffered a natural stellar event," she reported, the words flowing into the secure channel. "But I found the classified files. They destroyed Earth because they feared us. Their projections showed we would surpass them technologically within a millennium." She paused, then added the final piece. "Most interesting of all, they've forgotten us. The current Council species have no memory of humans. They've buried their own crime so deeply that they don't even remember committing it." When her report was complete, Minji did something very human despite her alien appearance. She smiled. Not the facial expression of the Nistari, whose smiles were wide and toothy, but a small, tight human smile that hadn't changed in 500,000 years. The Council had forgotten humanity, but humanity had never forgotten them, and, now with this final piece of intelligence, the long-awaited return could begin. Minji dissolved her borrowed form that night, her consciousness transferring back to her primary body, waiting in a stealth ship beyond the system's boundary. As her awareness settled back into her human shape, she felt a strange sense of satisfaction mixed with anticipation. 400,000 years of waiting, watching, and preparing. 400,000 years of evolution and advancement, all with a single purpose. Soon, Very soon, the Council would remember humans, and by then, it would be far too late. The stars looked different from dimensional space, not brighter or dimmer, just wrong somehow. They stretched and smeared across the view screen like watercolors left in the rain. Admiral Junho Kang had spent most of his 300-year life looking at these distorted stars. They felt more like home than any real starfield ever could. "Time to emergence?" he asked, his deep voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. "6 minutes, Admiral," replied his navigation officer, her fingers dancing over the control interface that floated in front of her. The command ship, Remembrance, was massive beyond ancient human comprehension. A vessel the size of old. Earth's moon, housing millions of crew members and carrying enough firepower to shatter planets. And it was just one of 12 such ships in the reclamation fleet. Junho walked slowly around the circular bridge, touching each station briefly as he passed. It was an old habit, a ritual of connection with his crew before a major operation. His officers appreciated the gesture. The physical connection still meant something, even to humans who could share consciousness directly when they wished. "All ships report ready status," announced his communications chief. "The dimensional pocket containing Earth is stable and prepared for transition." Junho nodded, allowing himself a small smile. The culmination of 500,000 years of planning was finally at hand. "Open ship-wide communication," he said. A small chime indicated the channel was open. Throughout the massive vessel, every crew member paused in their duties to listen. "This is Admiral Kang," he began. "In 5 minutes, we will emerge from dimensional space into the heart of Council territory. For most of you, this will be your first time seeing stars as they truly are, not distorted by dimensional barriers. For all of us, it will be the first time we face the civilization that tried to erase us from existence." Junho paused, drawing in a breath. The air on the ship was clean, recycled thousands of times through living plant systems. Nothing like the stale, artificial air of those first refugee vessels that fled a dying Earth. "We have waited nearly 500,000 years for this day. Hundreds of generations lived and died preparing for what we are about to do. Our ancestors swore an oath to remember, to survive and to return. Today we fulfill that promise." Around the ship, crew members stood a little straighter. Many of them touched the small implants at the bases of their skulls, the memory implants that let them experience firsthand the destruction of Earth through Commander Jiwoo Kim's eyes. "We do not come seeking destruction," Junho continued. "We could have struck from hiding, wiped out Council worlds one by one. That would make us no better than they were. Instead, we come openly with the truth. We come to reclaim our place and our history." The view screen showed the countdown to emergence. 3 minutes remaining. They believed themselves the undisputed masters of the known universe, Junho said, his voice hardening slightly. "They have grown complacent, fractured by internal politics. They have forgotten us, buried their crimes so deeply that most don't even know it happened. Today, we remind them." 2 minutes. In a separate dimensional pocket, another miracle waited. Earth itself, not destroyed after all, but hidden away as a barren rock, then healed over millennia through technology that accelerated planetary recovery. Oceans had been reseeded with life. Continents had been replanted with forests and grasslands. Species painstakingly reconstructed from genetic samples thrived once more. It wasn't exactly the Earth that had been lost. Some species were gone forever, and the continents had shifted naturally over the centuries. But it was Earth nonetheless. A living monument to human persistence. 1 minute. "When we appear in their space, there will be confusion, perhaps panic," Junho said. "Some may attack without understanding who we are. Our shields will hold. We will not return fire unless absolutely necessary." He paused, making eye contact with several officers around the bridge. "Our first action will be to broadcast our message to every corner of Council space. After that, we follow the plan. Be ready for anything. They are not the same species who destroyed our world. They're the heirs to that crime, just as we are the heirs to Earth's legacy." 30 seconds. Junho returned to his command chair at the center of the bridge, running his hand along its smooth surface before sitting down. His officers watched him intently, drawing strength from his calm demeanor. "Admiral," said his second-in-command, quietly. "The historical records suggest the Council has encountered nothing like us in their history. They have no defense against our technology." "They never have," Junho replied with a slight smile. "That's why they feared us in the first place." 10 seconds, the bridge fell silent. The only sound was the soft beeping of the countdown. Junho closed his eyes briefly, picturing the Earth he had never seen except through implanted memories and reconstructions. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land masses. Home. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Reality snapped back into focus as the remembrance tore through the dimensional barrier. The smeared stars suddenly sharpened, forming familiar constellations. The main view screen filled with the image of a gleaming world, Tarsis Prime, the Council's current capital. Alarms immediately began to sound across the bridge as the Council's detection systems registered their presence. "Defensive systems activating on Tarsis Prime," reported the tactical officer calmly. "Their weapons are primitive by our standards. Shields at full strength." Junho nodded, his eyes fixed on the glittering planet below. "Begin the transmission, all frequencies, all languages, all Council worlds simultaneously." The communications chief worked her controls, then nodded to the Admiral. "Ready, sir." Junho stood, straightening his uniform, a simple dark grey with a single blue band across the chest, the color of Earth's oceans as seen from space. "Send." "Hit," he ordered. Across thousands of worlds on millions of communication devices, in government chambers and private homes, in spaceships and on planets' surfaces, the same message appeared simultaneously. 3 simple words, spoken in Admiral Junho Kang's steady voice. "We remember Earth." In the silence that followed, Junho looked around at his crew, at humans who had evolved into something their ancestors could scarcely have imagined, yet who still carried the same determination that had allowed a handful of refugees to survive against impossible odds. "And now," he said quietly, "we bring Earth back to them." The morning sky over New Earth was perfect blue, with just a few wispy clouds drifting above the restored mountains of what had once been called North America. Admiral Junho Kang stood on a grassy hillside, breathing deeply the sweet air of the world his ancestors had lost 500,000 years ago. Below him stretched a vast natural amphitheater where, in just 1 hour, the fate of the galaxy would be decided. Junho couldn't help but smile at the irony. For all their advanced technology, dimensional pockets, consciousness transfers, ships that could crack planets, humans had chosen to hold this historic meeting outdoors, under an open sky, with real wind blowing through real trees. "Admiral," a voice called from behind him. "They're ready." He turned to see his aide, a young officer named Jisoo, her uniform crisp despite the gentle breeze. "The Council representatives?" he asked. She nodded. "All 73 of them. They're confused, frightened, some are angry." "As they should be," Junho replied, though there was no malice in his voice, just a calm certainty. "It's not every day you're teleported to a planet you thought you destroyed." The teleportation had been the first demonstration of human technological superiority. One moment, the Council's ruling members had been in their secure chamber on Tarsis Prime, arguing about how to respond to the mysterious human fleet. The next, they found themselves in comfortable but inescapable guest quarters on a world none of them recognized, a world that shouldn't exist. The past week had been carefully orchestrated. The Council members were treated well, shown recordings of Earth's destruction, given access to the classified files Minji Lee had discovered. They were introduced to New Earth's ecosystem, allowed to see what had been restored after their ancestors' attempt at genocide. None had been harmed. Not a single Council world had been attacked. The only acts of force had been the disabling of military installations, done with surgical precision without a single casualty. It was important to Junho that they understand this was not revenge. This was justice. "It's time," Jisoo said softly. Junho nodded and began walking down the hillside path toward the amphitheater. As he approached, he could see the thousands gathered there, representatives from human colonies throughout the galaxies, wearing the distinctive clothing of their varied worlds. Mixed among them were delegates from 1,000 non-Council worlds, species that had developed relations with humanity during the long centuries of hiding. And at the center, looking small and unsure, the 73 council representatives. Their species were wildly different, some tall and slender, others squat and powerful. Some had multiple limbs or eyes, others seemed almost human-like. Most were descendants of species that hadn't even existed when Earth was destroyed. As Junho walked to the central platform, a hush fell over the gathering. He wasn't a particularly tall man, nor physically imposing. His power came from something else, the quiet authority of someone who carried 500,000 years of purpose. "Members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice carried clearly, by subtle acoustic technology built into the hillsides. "Representatives of free worlds, fellow humans, today marks exactly 500,000 years since the Council ordered the destruction of Earth." He paused, letting the weight of that number sink in. 500,000 years. It's difficult to truly comprehend such a span of time. When your ancestors attacked our world, humans had barely left their solar system. We used primitive chemical rockets. We had yet to cure all our diseases. We were, by galactic standards, children. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. One, a tall blue-skinned being, actually lowered its eye stalks in what might have been shame. "Your records claim our solar system suffered a natural disaster," Junho continued. "But as you now know, that was a lie created by your predecessors. Earth was deliberately targeted because of what we might become, because we learned too quickly, adapted too readily, because projection models showed we would eventually surpass the Council technologically." Junho gestured upward, and the sky itself seemed to shimmer. Suddenly the blue was replaced by a view of space, showing the massive human fleet in orbit, ships larger than moons, technology that made the Council's most advanced vessels look primitive. "Those projections," he said with a small smile, "were correct." The display vanished, returning to blue sky. The demonstration was clear. Humans controlled this world, this meeting, this moment completely. For 500,000 years, we remembered. We evolved. We prepared. We built an invisible empire spanning 14 galaxies, all while you believed us extinct. Junho stepped off the platform, walking toward the council representatives. "We could have destroyed you as you destroyed our home," he stated, his voice carrying a weight that made even the largest council members shrink back. "We could have wiped out your worlds one by one. With our technology, you would have had no defense." He stopped directly in front of them. "Instead, we offer justice tempered by what truly makes us human, the capacity to evolve beyond vengeance." Murmur ran through the crowd. This was the moment many humans had waited generations for, the pronouncement of judgment on those who had tried to erase them from existence. "The Galactic Council will be reorganized," Junho declared. "No longer will a small group of species dictate the fate of all others. Each world, each civilization, will have equal voice. Human representatives will guide this transition. We have had 500,000 years to consider better ways of governing a galaxy." He turned to a group of council members on his left, those whose species had been most directly involved in Earth's destruction, though none of them had personally participated. "Your worlds will contribute resources, labor, and expertise to galactic restoration projects, helping worlds damaged by council exploitation to heal, just as we healed Earth. This restitution will continue for 1,000 years. There were nods. The punishment was firm but fair. Nobody could reasonably object. Then Junho faced the final group, 3 ancient beings whose species had actually ordered Earth's destruction, the only ones still existing from that time thanks to their incredibly long lifespans. "As for you 3, he said, his voice softening slightly, "you face a different fate. You will be exiled to primitive worlds. Worlds like Earth was when you destroyed it. There, you will live out your lives with the full memory of what your kind did. You will experience what it means to struggle for survival without advanced technology, to build from nothing, to face the universe unprotected." The 3 ancients didn't protest. Perhaps after 500,000 years, they understood the justice in it. As Junho stepped back onto the platform, the crowd erupted in applause. Not just humans, but representatives from countless worlds that had suffered under Council dominance. Today marks the beginning of the human era, he declared. Not an era of conquest, but of cooperation. Not of suppression, but of sharing knowledge. We have transformed our suffering into wisdom. We remember our past, but we will not be defined by it. Above, the sky filled with ships, thousands of diplomatic vessels descending toward Earth's surface, representatives coming to witness the dawn of a new galactic order. Junho found himself looking up at those ships, at the stars beyond them, feeling a strange sense of completion. For so long, those distant lights had represented exile, separation from humanity's birthplace. Now they were simply the domain of a species that had refused to be erased. Somewhere in the crowd was a genetic specialist who carried the direct lineage of Commander Jiwoo Kim, the woman who had watched Earth die and sworn it would not be forgotten. Junho made a mental note to find her later, to tell her that her ancestors' promise had finally been fulfilled. The wound of Earth's destruction would never fully heal, but today, after 500,000 years, justice had finally been served. Not through destruction, but through something far more powerful. The unique human capacity to transform tragedy into progress. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same.